But if the overarching pattern in your career is doing shady things, that points to a larger issue about your character, right? This is not the first time that Jay-Z has entered into a shady business deal, not even taking into account the things that people who've worked with him have said about him as a person, right? I'm not going off like gossip and hearsay and what people, because none of us, I don't know these people, but I'm looking at his actual partnerships, right? Okay, y'all, we gotta talk about y'all's boy Jay-Z. I wrote an article about, I'm sure by now many of y'all have heard about this Target deal that Jay-Z entered into. So it will be, this week makes the 30th anniversary of Jay-Z's debut album, Reasonable Doubt. And to celebrate the anniversary, he's partnered with Target. Yes, the same Target that we've been boycotting for over a year. He partnered with Target to release a vinyl version of his album, right? And so people have been rightfully calling him out and saying, aren't you supposed to be a man for the people and for the Black community? You know we are boycotting, despite what Pastor Jamal Bryant says. You know we are still boycotting Target. We've been boycotting, many people within the Black community and just people who are pro-DEI have been boycotting Target. So it's weird that he made the decision to partner with Target. But if this was an isolated incident when it came to Jay-Z, it wouldn't be weird, right? If this was like over the span of his 30-year career, if this was like one of the few shady things he had done, and I know none of us we are all fallible. Nobody's infallible. We are all living contradictions, right? But if the overarching pattern in your career is doing shady things, that points to a larger issue about your character, right? This is not the first time that Jay-Z has entered into a shady business deal, not even taking into account the things that people who've worked with him have said about him as a person, right? I'm not going off like gossip and hearsay and what people, because none of us, I don't know these people, but I'm looking at his actual partnerships, right? And so besides this shady Target deal, one of the partnerships that I always was intrigued by and thought was found out later was super shady was in 2012. So the year I moved to New York, the Barclays Center opened, and Jay-Z was he owned a very small stake before he sold it. I think less than 0.1% of the Barclays Center he owned back in the day. But the Barclays Center is this huge basketball venue. It is in the heart of Brooklyn, and it was built for the Brooklyn Nets basketball team. And Jay-Z was part of spearheading or promoting rather the construction of the venue. When it opened in the fall of 2012, he played a series of sold out shows at the Barclays Center. And so when I think of the Barclays, honestly, I think of Jay-Z. When I moved to, in 2013, Beyonce did a concert in the Barclays Center, and me and one of my close friends, my roommate, we went and saw her. So when I think of the Barclays, I think of Jay-Z, right? And despite the fact that the local residents had protested, had talked about how the construction of the Barclays Center, despite the fact that it was being touted as this thing that would bring lots of jobs, it displaced the residents in Brooklyn, right? It led to gentrification and displacement of the local residents. And when that happens, it's the culture is leaving the community. So it was weird that somebody like Jay-Z, who loves their beloved borough, would not take that into consideration, when these groups of people from your hometown, from your home borough, are saying, yo, we don't want this thing to be constructed because it is going to displace us, right? Outside of the Target deal and the construction and Jay-Z spearheading or being so instrumental in the involvement of the construction of the Barclays Center, the third pivotal career partnership that made me look at Jay-Z and give him a side eye was the whole thing with the NFL. We know that in 2016, Colin Kaepernick started kneeling to protest racial injustice and police brutality, and he got blackballed, right? I believe he got blackballed. His wife, I've been following her since her years ago, since her Nessa. I've been following her since her like MTV days, and his wife talks about it more than him. Colin seems like he's more, I don't follow him online, but I just haven't really seen him like talk about it. But Nessa's more vocal, and Nessa has said like, and even Eric Reed, who was, I believe, Colin Kaepernick's teammate, Eric Reed said that Colin Kaepernick was not involved in this deal, and Jay-Z said he supported what Colin Kaepernick was doing. If you support me kneeling, why 3 years later in 2019 do you enter into this shady deal with the NFL to Rock Nation, and the NFL did this whole deal? There was actually, and I'm gonna put the article below, there was a Yahoo Sports article I found where somebody prominent in the NFL basically said that they needed to rehabilitate their image after the controversy with the Colin Kaepernick kneeling, and he said something like they needed a figurehead to help them rehabilitate their image. And Jemele Hill has talked about this, and she wrote an article, but I couldn't access it. I think it's from The Atlantic. I love Jemele Hill. Her takes are always spot on, but she talked about this, and I found a separate article where it talked about what this prominent person in the NFL, this person in leadership basically said, and how like, yeah, we need a black person who's prominent within the black community, a figurehead to help us rehabilitate our image. And that's the role that Jay-Z served, because a lot of people, not me, I was never watching the NFL, but I did watch the halftime shows, but I don't watch now. A lot of people who were boycotting because of Kaepernick have stopped boycotting because Jay-Z muddied the waters. And so if you are somebody in his raps, in his music, in every album, there's many songs where he's talked about how he supports the black community. He wants to see black mobility, right? 444 was an album that stands out in my mind and I actually how long ago did that album come out? I know it was when I moved to New York. So maybe it was like 2013 or 2014. But I did a video and I'll link it above, but he was talking about all of this like black excellence and black mobility and all of these things. And even the joint album he did with my queen Beyonce, a lot of it was like promoting black businesses and buying black and supporting black. But the things that you are doing actively undermine black people. And as somebody who is a billionaire, maybe a multi-billionaire, I would expect someone in your power and your position to engage in activities that actually try to dismantle the system that you were somehow able to escape from. And I know that the Jay-Z stans are gonna come in here and say, well, Jay-Z's one person, why should the responsibility fall on him? I believe everyone who has money, access, wealth, opportunity, cachet, anyone who has, even me, as somebody with a small platform, I believe that we all with great power, as they say in Spider-Man, in great power comes great responsibility. I believe that having wealth and access and notoriety grants you, there's a responsibility, especially when you are a black person. You have a responsibility to help to try to dismantle the harmful systems that you were able to escape from, right? And I think that it's cute to say it in music. You know, it's cute to do, and I say this as a Beehive member, it's cute to do like a Super Bowl performance where you're doing the Black Panther and you have the Black Panther imagery. But if you're not embodying the Black Panther ethic, it just comes off as performative. And I think that a pattern that we're seeing with Jay-Z is like when white people need their image rehabilitated, they just call Jay-Z, right? We are actively boycotting Target. Why would you decide, like out of all of the retailers, right, that you could have, I don't know, where people buy CDs or vinyl, I don't know. But I'm sure there was somebody somewhere else you could have bought it or you could have done this partnership with other than Target. And it just seems shady. You do things constantly in your career that seems to undermine the black community that you're supposedly advocating for. And I think Jemele Hill, I listened to her on the Higher Learning podcast, which is with Rachel Lindsay and Van. I always want to say Van Lathan. And she made the comparison and compared Jay-Z to Drake. And she said if Drake did this partnership, people wouldn't be surprised, because Drake, in none of his music is he really like, does he advocate for the Black community or racial justice or whatever. It's not his brand. It's not his ethic. It's not his politic. So it's not surprising when Drake does stuff for money. Like when you sue Kendrick Lamar and the record company for, that's not surprising, right? Because it's Drake. But it is surprising, and to me it's not, because I feel like Jay-Z's already shown a pattern of behavior. A leopard shows its spots. And I say this as somebody who loves Jay-Z's music, right? I'm not like, I wasn't like an OG listener back in the 90s and the 2000s and stuff like that. I was more of a Kanye West girly, but I love Jay-Z's music, and I think I can appreciate his music. I saw the Sacred ad that they put out. I sent it to my partner, and I was like, this is so beautiful. The relationship Jay-Z has with his daughters, with Blue specifically, I think that's beautiful. But I can also call out your shady business dealings and say this points to a wider issue within your career, right? And so I think that it's important for us to make a practice of calling BS out when we see it. I think Jay-Z, for so many people, brings a sense of nostalgia, and people don't want to critique him. We saw the same thing with Diddy. And, you know, when Cassie came out initially and made the allegations against, at that point there were allegations against Diddy, people were like, they didn't believe her, right? Slim Thug came out and said, why? I think he said something like, why did she wait so long? People did not believe Cassie. But when the video came out, right? And even, you know, with the Diddy trial, people just have a sense of nostalgia when it comes to the Jay-Z's and the Diddy's and all of these people. And I feel like the way that we are all oppressed under the same system, the way that we are going to dismantle the system is by calling out how the system is able to continue to be upheld and calling out the people that are upholding the system. And I do think that Jay-Z, with all of his power and wealth and privilege and access, I think that this is my opinion, don't throw stones at me, y'all, but I just think someone in his position could move better and could move differently. Now, someone might say, well, it's not like Jay-Z hasn't done anything. I think during the Black Lives Matter protests and what was happening after the murder of George Floyd, I believe Jay-Z was like, or his organization was like bailing people out of jail. I believe that, I don't know what else I'm like trying to think. I don't know. I'm sure there's other things. I'm not saying that the man is like, hasn't done anything to support the Black community, but I think that his pattern of behavior shows that he's not somebody that's for the people. He's somebody that's for his pockets and for his profits. And in the article I wrote, I pointed out that one of my favorite, I have so many favorite Kanye West songs, right? From the old Kanye, right? The first 5 albums Kanye. But one of my favorite songs was, I loved him and I loved Watch the Throne. I love Kanye and Jay-Z and their energy, and I don't think we'll ever get a joint album because Kanye is off doing whatever, and yeah. But and also, like, you can't talk about somebody's child and think you can come back from that. But in the song Diamonds Are Forever, 2005 song from 21 years ago, Jay-Z told us already, he said, I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman. So it's like, we should already know how he's moving and what type of time he's on. But I still think that despite what he said 21 years ago, I still expect more from him. And I think it's okay to expect to continuously be disappointed. Like Toni Morrison said, I insist on being perpetually shocked. I never want to be so numb to racism or to harm to where it's gotten to the point where when someone does something, I'm not shocked, right? One thing I can't stand is when like something happens and people are like, well, what did you expect? Are you surprised? And it's like, yeah, I want to be perpetually, like Toni Morrison said, I want to be surprised. When the verdict came out and the store owner, Rick Chow, got off scotch-free when he shot him and his son, or him or his son shot a young Black child in the back who was running away. And people said, are we surprised? yeah, I want to be surprised because I want to live in a world where it's possible for people to get better. It's possible for systems of oppression to be deconstructed. Maybe I live in la la land, but I still expect more from celebrities, right? I'm never going to be like, well, Beyonce is, you know, she's irredeemable. I think every person is redeemable, and maybe that's naive. Maybe some people don't agree, but I do expect a certain level of responsibility from celebrities. And so I just wanted to share my thoughts. I want to know your thoughts. You know, what's the responsibility of people in positions of power when it comes to dismantling systems of oppression? I think that Jay-Z is not unlike any person who is not famous, who comes from humble beginnings and is able to transcend or ascend within an institution and reach these high echelons of society, and they forget where they came from or feel like they have to distance themselves from their community or denounce their community in order to continue to be successful. And I don't think that that helps anybody but you and but your pockets. But also, like I wrote in the article, that's not sustainable. You can do that but so long, but at some point you need community. We all need community. And I think there's a certain level of guilt that you hold when you know that you are working against your community. Maybe I'm being naive. Maybe the Uncle Toms and those folks have no sorts of levels of guilt, but I do think it eats away at you. So those are my thoughts. Let me know what you think. If you've seen Jay-Z's or Jay-Z-like types in your life, in your workplace. I feel like we see this a lot in the workplace. And what responsibility, if any, you think celebrities and people with power and privilege have when it comes to deconstructing these systems of oppression that harm us all. So thank you for watching, and I will see y'all in the next video.